angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video, Mama Reese and Sarah and I are heading to McBurney Park, which is better known as Skeleton Park, to conduct kind of an investigation, kind of a walkthrough and vibe sensor and all of that jazz. But before we get out of the car and head across the street to the park, I thought that I would give you guys kind of a brief history of what exactly it is that we're exploring, what exactly Skeleton Park is, and what we are going to be looking for when we do conduct the spirit box session. So there are actually dozens of hidden burial grounds in Kingston. However, by far the most popular is McBurney Park, but nobody calls it that. It's called Skeleton Park. Now, this park was originally the site of one of Kingston's largest and oldest cemeteries. The cemetery actually opened up in 1809 and filled up incredibly fast when epidemics swept through Kingston during the 1830s and the 1840s. Now, the cemetery was actually closed for burials in 1865 and fell into a horrible state. Like, majority of the gravestones, you guys, were actually knocked over and broken, and people were letting their cows walk through. And by 1893, this whole cemetery had become an entire mess. So city council actually decided to go ahead and do something, and they decided that they were going to transform this cemetery, or kind of what was left of the cemetery, into a park. Now, a lot of people actually went ahead and tried to stop the city from moving the bodies and transforming it into a park. But eventually the city actually made a lot of promises that seemed very strict and very by the book, and people eventually allowed it given those few conditions. One of which being a list of people who were buried there and areas in the particular park indicating where bodies were buried. They also said that they were never going to put sidewalks or pavement all throughout the park. But while they began digging up these bodies, they realized that they were only buried a few feet under the surface. And on top of that, a lot of the coffins were empty, often filled with rocks, which was most definitely the result of grave robbing. Actually, terrifyingly and interestingly enough, there were criminals who were stealing bodies from local graveyards and selling them to medical students at Queen's University, which is just an interesting piece of history. Now, the most terrifying part of all is that only a few hundred bodies were actually dug out and moved before this entire moving process was cut short. They received a threat from the American consul basically stating that lifting these bodies out from underground that had died from these particular epidemics raised a risk of these diseases returning, and they basically went ahead and threatened with closing Kingston to American ships if they did not stop this digging up of bodies right away. Well, obviously, Kingston couldn't afford to lose their trade to the United States, so they stopped the moving and digging up of these bodies, but they kept their plans moving forward of making this a park, meaning that to this day, there are thousands of bodies still buried underground of a public park. They hoped that people would forget about the history. They literally took the tombstones, poured dirt on top of them, and sowed grass seed, hoping that nobody would remember there were thousands upon thousands of bodies buried underneath, making this particular site, Skeleton Park, one of the most haunted places in Kingston. So today, Mama Reese, Sarah, and I are heading in there to investigate. We are bringing along the trusty spirit box, and we're gonna get to the bottom of who still lays to rest here. Let's go. Okay, angels, so we just made it to Skeleton Park, and as you guys can see, based off of what we are currently walking on, a big promise was not upheld. I don't see any flowers, and the only space where I think they would be is not big enough for the park. There's one tombstone, one lone tombstone standing right here, right there. And the park is just a park. It's crazy to think that right now we are literally walking on top of people's bodies and thousands. Like, is that not so insane? We are literally walking on thousands of bodies. So what I really want to do is find a location where we can sit down and try to get some sort of a spirit box and see what we can get. Okay, you guys, it is freezing. How cold is it?
It's so cold.
It's freezing in Skeleton Park, but I'm determined to try to get some sort of a spirit box session here. It's just too incredible of a location to pass up on. So I guess, Sarah, do you think you could hold this on all three of us while I fire her up? Put it more on you, silly. Ooh, hi. Are you buried here? Really active here, wow.
Yeah.
Are you buried here? Hi, I can hear you. Ladies.
Oh my god.
It said ladies. Hi, sir. How are you? My name's Hailey. This is my mom. This is Sarah.
Yeah.
And we're always
I always wave. I'm polite.
and we are here to communicate with you. Hold on, sir. We're gonna readjust.
Okay, good.
Can we just sit on the ground?
Yeah, why not? Whoa.
You're sick?
Yeah, he's sick.
You're sick. Okay. Were you... Are you sick? Do you think you're sick? I promise you, you're not sick anymore. You passed on. You're stuck. He said, I'm stuck. You're not stuck. I promise you, you're never stuck. There's a white light. That gave you chills. That was the most clear. I'm stuck. You're not stuck. No. You're not stuck. Do you see a white light? You guys can all go to the white light. You're not stuck, I promise you.
Who is that?
He said I'm sick and I told him he's not anymore and he said he's stuck. That's actually so heartbreaking. Why are you stuck here?